Hi everyone, my name is Adam Faulkner. I am a poet, an artist, an educator, and a scholar, and from my quarantined nest to yours, I am really delighted to be joining y'all here for just a few minutes to share a little bit about this beautiful brand new book of mine in the world, but also to offer a few prompts and ways of working that will hopefully stimulate some creativity and some joy in this very strange and brave new world that we're living in. Thank you for being here. A good deal of my work wrestles with intersectional themes of race, masculinity, queerness, and social justice education. And as a way of grounding my new book and a discussion of it, and as a way of offering a few practices for us here, I want to quickly share a helpful framework that was shared with me by the brilliant Jeannie O'Hare at the Public Theater, with whom I had the powerful opportunity to work with through a fellowship experience I did with the public last summer. She shared with me what are Shakespeare's 6 memos to self that he asked himself to reflect on every single time he sat down to write. And whatever your positioning might be on good old Will Shakespeare these days, I was really moved by them and felt like they underscore the questions that are central both to my book, The Willys, and those that I find that I'm asking myself right now as a creative searching for direction and momentum in these bizarre times. So I took the liberty of borrowing those sort of like guiding memos to self, and I take them on my wall and I return to them when I sit down to work. And before we jump into things here, I thought that I would share them with you now. They are as follows. Shakespeare's 6 memos to self. Number 1, magnitude. What is the scale of the question I am asking myself? Magnitude. Number 2, how truthful is this? Exactitude. Number 3, incongruity. What 2 unlikely ideas can I marry? Incongruity. Number 4, irreverence. Am I writing what authority wants me to write? Irreverence. Number 5 is my favorite. Veracity. Do I share the appetites and urgencies of my people? Veracity. And number 6, love. Love. And while all of Shakespeare's 6 memos to self are powerful in their own way, I really want to talk about incongruity, both the role it plays in my book, The Willys, but also the role it plays in some of the writers' work I'm teaching and finding meaning in right now. So The Willys is a book that tells 2 stories simultaneously. The first is the story of my own sort of coming into queerhood. So a good deal of the book wrestles with themes of masculinity and gender and whiteness and cultural appropriation. And the other story is the story of my father's alcoholism and his story of addiction and recovery. And both of these stories really revolve around a kind of hiding from one's self, costuming, a masquerading almost, so as to avoid addressing the harder questions in each of our lives. The speaker in the book parades through the incongruous roles of masquerading white boy, child of an addict, closeted varsity athlete, musical theater nerd, honor roll pothead, and in many ways reflects the kind of incongruous, conflicting selves or splitting selves that many queer kids encounter as they figure their way out in the world. The father figure in the book moves through these roles of supportive mentor, prejudiced father, fishing partner, hospital intake patient, again, incongruous identities. So when thinking about Shakespeare's 4th memo to self, this question of incongruity, what 2 unlikely ideas can I marry? These 2 stories are about characters with multiple contradictory selves. The very different but equally monumental stories at the core of the Willys are attached to each other through this vehicle of fear and healing, and this notion of forcing oneself to make the hard utterances or ask the hard questions in order to be free and alive in the world. So that gets us to this prompt I'd like to propose to y'all, and then we'll talk about a couple other resources. But the prompt I'm thinking of is here. Think about your own past selves. I have this belief that we got to where we are right now. A, of course, because other people loved us, but B, because we survived some things. Our personalities don't just like form or evolve or mold overnight, right? Or like lightning in a bottle. We get good at what we get good at because we develop skills that help us survive. So I'd like us to think for just a brief moment about your past selves. Who are your own past selves? Who have you been? Why have you been them? The opening poem in this book is called Willy Boy, and it begins with the lines, "Finally, the poem I will not write." What is the poem or the story that you won't write? Tell that tale. Ideally, do it in 20 lines or less. Departing from my own work for a second, but staying with Shakespeare's notion of incongruity. Other writers that I've been teaching around this theme in these strange and uncertain times have been those that are working hard in their art to find joy amidst and because of fear. Delight as tethered to an awareness of mortality, or rather, that the small things that we have beauty and encounter levity in with others, those are directly linked to understanding that we may not be here forever. Again, a incongruous idea if I ever heard one. Finding delight and joy through an awareness of death. So I'd like to leave y'all with a few resources to help you think about that timely idea. The first is an interview between Ross Gay and Krista Tippett for On Being, the radio show. You can find the whole conversation just by Googling Ross Gay, Krista Tippett, On Being. There are a few links at the bottom of that that really offer Ross's analysis of what joy in dark times means and the extent to which it is possible because we're aware of its absence, right? So find that. There's plenty of like writing materials or small delight essay it, as he calls them, meditations to carry. The second piece is a piece by Shira Ehrlichman. It is her Ode to Lithium number 600. And you can find that on Brooklyn Poet's website. It's an exercise in thinking about the side effects that come from something that we need in our lives, and the ways in which it's possible to think of them not as heavy, weighty dependencies, but as opportunities through which we're able to find ourselves. And the third piece I'd like you to look at and think about is Hanif Abdurraqib's How Can Black People Write About Flowers at a Time Like This, which is a series and is linked pretty widely online. You should have no trouble finding any of those poems. Hanif's also the lead editor on my book, The Willys, so while I am not an unbiased voice there, many people would agree that his work is doing something very powerful and very profound and something very comforting that I'm experiencing with his work in this moment. So through any of these timely and all these beautiful resources, think about beauty in marrying grief to levity, trauma to delight, and a fear of uncertainty to embracing this beautiful, joyous moment, whatever strange form it takes. Thank you all for catching this little pep talk, and feel free to find me on the internet. Be safe. Love you.